This is kind of funny to me, but I don't usually do this a couple times in the day, but I had an issue pop up actually a few times today already with a couple of different clients. And so I thought I would get on and just kind of go over this with everybody because I think it's really important information and it could be really beneficial and helpful for a few of us actually. So the question was, and it doesn't usually come out in the form of a question, it usually comes out in the form of somebody telling me I'm an empath. Cool. I have no qualms with that. You probably are, actually. I think everybody is to some degree. And I'll tell you why in just a minute. But I do get asked this question a lot in groups. Am I an empath? And so knowing whether you are or not, I guess, can be important. But there's, I think, things inside of that are probably more important to know. And one of the questions I always ask is, do you sense other people around you? And why this is important is sometimes we don't. We get so locked out of our own systems, we don't even sense what's going on around us. We don't even notice other people. We don't notice things going on. And that can actually cause problems inside your system, right? And especially when it's important to notice something like that, you know, if somebody else is having an issue or somebody else is in the middle of a problem, or I don't know, so many things can be going on around you. If you're not noticing other people and being aware of other people in your space, that can be a bit of a problem for you. So sensing and being aware of people around you starts with clarity of self. And I guess that's where the biggest problem can come in, is if you're not sensing other people, you're not clear about yourself. So it's hard to recognize someone else if all you can see is your own faults, your own pain, your own issues, your own sadness, your own anger, whatever the it is, right? The other way you're not clear or not really clear of yourself or have clarity of yourself is if you're just full of yourself. So if you're full of your own ego and you're all locked up inside, you know, who you are and who you are potentially, sometimes that will keep you from seeing and recognizing other people. And we don't want that either. We want you to be really open and clear about everything, you know, who's around you, what's going on around you. So people who are an empath are usually like, I'm just really sensing everybody's stuff. I'm really aware of what's going on around me. Like it's over heightened and the sensory information is almost too much. So what they're coming to me for is asking me to help them bring it down a few notches because it's just too much to take in, or what do you do with it? A very specific question I get all the time is, how do you block other people's energy? I'm going to talk to you about that for a few minutes right here. One of the other important things I think you need to know about being an empath is recognizing, or how to recognize pain in another being. How to recognize pain, and then being able to hold and support that person takes courage, it takes love, that takes a special person. And I sometimes think that that's a gift. It's a gift that certain people have, to be able to reach out and hold and hang on to and just love and help people who are hurting, especially on a really deep level. And I think it's a blessing. It's a blessing for humanity to have those kind of people around. So it's very important. But one of the problems is people who can do that or have that gifting, if you want to look at it that way, also have trouble keeping the pain away from them. Some people try and absorb the pain, right? So if you're an empath and you think you have to absorb the pain, you don't. You don't need to absorb it. Some people feel the pain in order to help the other person get over the pain, right? If it's an ongoing battle that this person is in and you're trying to absorb it and take it on, you're taking on some ongoing energy, right? So you have to be really aware and decide what you're willing to take on and what you're not willing to take on. And in my point of view, it's not necessary to ever take it on. You shouldn't be taking on other people's stuff. You shouldn't be taking on other people's pain. You just shouldn't be. Let's see, so if you're having trouble discerning, and this is another good thing too, a good question, is what you're feeling. Sometimes, you know, we'll have a pain, we'll have something going on inside our body. And I'm always wondering, I always ask a person, is what you're discerning as pain, is your pain, is it even yours? Is that your pain? Is that your issue? Or have you taken on something because either somebody came to you with a problem and you took it on, or because you were just reaching out with your feelers and taking on stuff that didn't belong to you, right? Because either you don't know how to block it, how to stop doing it, or I don't know, you're just kind of testing the waters because you just realized you're an empath, right? Some people get really absorbed in this idea of I'm an empath. So let's go back to the beginning. I think everybody has empathic tendencies. All of us. All of us. Whether you choose to use them and move into that kind of arena or not is a whole nother question. But whether you're Christian, Buddhist, you don't believe in anything, I don't think it matters. We all have sensory emotion feelers in our system. We all send out sensory emotions. We all take in sensory emotions. We all feel stuff off other people. And I always use this example. Go into a funeral home. Even when nothing's going on, walk into a funeral home. What does it feel like in there? Where does that feeling come from? And you might say, well, it's a funeral home. Well, it comes from, ooh, my battery's going to die. It comes from the fact that somebody, many people have died. There was a bunch of sad people in that place, right? The emotional residue that was left over probably came from, the wake, or I forget, like the ceremony of life things that they have, right? So there's residual feelings that are left behind from that kind of stuff. And you can take on pain from people who are having like that. So my first question is always, is it your pain to start with? And do you really want to hold on to it, or do you want to move it? So if you're full of feelings and sensations because you think you're feeling and ingesting other people's pain, issues, and emotions, be careful, because that stuff can really make you sick. And in many different areas, not just emotionally and physically, but it can make you spiritually sick. You're not supposed to carry that stuff around, right? That's what God does. And if you're, I don't know, whatever religious thing or whatever spiritual practice you're into, for me, that's what Jesus does. He says, give it to me, I'll take it. Right? It's easy in that regard. It's easy to think about. So learning how to move others' energy off of you is really important. So how do you do that? I want to tell you a story. I'm hoping I can find my plug for my phone. Of course, it's not in here. I want to tell you a little story real quick about a time when, before I ever knew any of this stuff, and I was sitting in an office and a gal was helping my son with some of his issues from all the surgeries and all the stuff he had gone through. So we were just trying to calm down not only emotional pain, but physical pain. And so she was doing some work on him, and I'm back in the corner just sitting in this big old, she had this huge old fluffy armchair. Really comfortable office, really cool space. She always had really nice music playing. And so I'm just sitting there in this corner watching whatever she was doing to my son, and all of a sudden I literally I felt myself backing up, and I don't know, it was hard. I can't even explain it. I was trying to push myself through the chair to get away from the feeling that was in that room. And she finally looked over at me and she's like, would you knock it off? And I was like, what? And she's like, do you even notice what you're doing? Like, you're literally crawling up the back of the chair and up the wall right now. Would you just sit down? And I looked around and I was literally halfway up the back of the chair trying to get out of whatever the feeling was. What she explained to me was whatever they were releasing from my son obviously had something to do with me because I gave birth to him. So interconnectedness there. I had followed him through all this stuff his whole life. Interconnectedness there. And the emotional attachment was huge. So what he was clearing, I was probably clearing some of, is what her assessment of that was. And she looked at me and she goes, just block it. And she made this motion. And I was like, and she goes, just block it. And I was like, okay. And I just sat there. I was like, are you being serious? And she goes, whatever your intention is. She goes, you clearly have a lot of, and she called it power. I don't know about any of that. I have some interesting gifts, I guess. When I did this, the energy went, and it just turned into dead space. It just stopped. And I was like, what on earth? What is that? And she goes, just so you don't have to feel it. I don't want you to have to feel this. And then she looked back over at me and she goes, that really, you don't feel anything. And I was like, I don't feel any of it anymore. Right? So that to me was super interesting, that you can actually just cut off energy. I want to feel it, right? What's your intention? I don't want to feel it. When I do that, what I visualized when she did that was this shield just rose up in front of me. And when that shield came up, I was like, oh, It was like a bit of a relief. Now, remember, we were in a very highly energetic space at that point. So whatever she was doing, as far as my son was concerned, there was a lot of energy already in the room. I was sitting in the corner talking to Jesus, so I already had that energy going on. If you can't make this work, give me a yell and let's see what we can do. Because my guess is we can get something going for you so you don't have to feel that energy so much, right? If you're taking on other people's pain and issues, and you can put your hand on it and get rid of it in your own body, there's a train of thought that says whoever's pain that was, it left their body also. So, and I talk about this guy often just because I find him absolutely fascinating. Bill Bengston, Dr. William Bengston, he wrote a book and has a couple of different things out. I actually think I gave it away since then, but it was something on healing. I forget what it was called, but it's his brand of healing. And what he's done over the years, and he tells a story about having stood in a kitchen before he understood all of this stuff, to whatever that means at this point. He was standing in a kitchen and had horrible back pain, and to the point he could hardly stand up. And his friend was standing over near a refrigerator, and he doubled over in pain. And then he held onto his back for a minute, and he just kind of stood there doing whatever he was doing. And he said his pain left. And he said he looked over at his friend and he was like, "What was that?" And he goes, "Oh, my back started hurting, so I got rid of it." And he goes, "My back stopped hurting." And he goes, "Oh, that was your pain." That's when the doctor realized, if I'm feeling something and it's not mine and I get rid of it on me, it's probably going to get rid of it on that other person too. Right? So that's some of the ways. And even before I had heard that story or knew anything about his work, that's some of the ways I was moving pain. So inside of a gym for years, after I started getting healthy and I got out of being a pastry chef, I was in a gym working in the streets of South Glen, actually in Colorado. And some guy, this was like the first time this ever really happened to me, and other odd things had happened, but not to this level. I was standing at the squat bench, a squat rack, and I was getting ready to do my squats, and this guy walks up and he throws his leg up on the edge of the squat bar, and he looks at me and he goes, "This hurts," and he pointed at his knee. And I was like, "Yeah, what'd you do?" I was like, "Why are you telling me this?" And he points at it again. He goes, "It really hurts." And I was like, "Well, what are you doing that's making it hurt?" And he goes, "Well, when I squat and when I bend it and when I try and run and I want to do all these things." And I'm like, "Well, like, I can see if we can help it. I don't know." I was really confused at this point. I wasn't sure where this was going, but I just bent down next to him. I put my hands around his knee. This energy came up in between my hands and I just held it there for a second. I took my hands off. I said, "Squat now and see how that feels." He squatted a few times. He goes, "It's still there, but it's better." I said, "Well, let's try it again." I said, "This time while I'm holding it, squat while I'm doing it." He started squatting and he kept squatting and he got deeper and deeper. And he's like, "Oh, wow, this is even deeper than I can normally squat." And I was like, "Cool, perfect answer. Get out of my way so I can do my squats," was basically my thought at the point. But I was just like, whoa, what the heck? What was that? What was that? I didn't feel his pain, but he knew somehow that if he walked up to me and said, "Hey," I never saw him again, never talked to him again. It was really interesting, and I had that happen quite a few times. So if somebody's walking up to you and telling you about pain, instead of trying to give them an answer, maybe try to move the pain. Maybe that's your signal that you can actually do that's a gifting you have. I don't know. I'm just saying, play with it, right? Ideas. How do you know how much and how far you can take this stuff until you step out and actually try it and do it? I don't know. I think more of us can do it innately than we give ourselves credit for. I really do. I think it's how the body heals. It's how our bodies respond to each other. It's how we come in connection with each other. And I think the more you do and the more you take on and the more you say, "Hey, put your hands on it. See if the pain goes away." If you want to talk about that too, please go ahead and get in contact with me. I do sessions privately with people all the time, so just know that. If you want to contact me concerning something of that nature, of that regard, to either clear subconscious chatter. This is the other thing I know. The clearer the subconscious mind is, the easier some of this other stuff gets. I seriously, and I will go back to the Bible and God all the time, I do not think he meant for us to be living like this. It is not in God's will for you to be sick, feel bad, be in pain, none of that stuff. It's not in his will. It's just not. We did that by our food supply. We've done it over courses of lifetimes with all the different things we do to ourselves. And so getting out of it is like recognizing your own power inside yourself. And the atoms and the way all of this stuff works, literally when you find it and you feel it and you know you can do it, put your hands around it. See what changes. That would be my thing on that. If you are empathic and you're having trouble blocking pain, this kind of went all over the place. It's not just about being empathic, I suppose. But if you're having trouble block it, play with the notion of bringing up a shield in front of you. Play with the notion of bringing up a shield, and if you really want to feel some of it, open a little window. It's what I used to do, because it got to where I was like so blocked out. I was like, well, now I'm not feeling anything. And I realized for so much of my life how much I had felt. When I wasn't feeling anything, I was like, oh, that's not comfortable either. So I had to find an easy or a good mix to it, right? Anyway, this is Sunday. Happy Easter. I'll be back with you tomorrow with something else. Type your questions, comments, whatever below. Tell your friends to come like Mind Rewire. Go to Facebook, like us there. We're on Facebook. I've got different stuff in there than I do in here. Sometimes it's the same, but a lot of times there's different things going on. And I hope to be talking to you soon. It won't cancel.